Welcome in live to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Today we are back with some bowl previews as we preview the Houston Cougars as they take on the Auburn Tigers in the Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl. To start off, the spread, Auburn is favored by 2.5 points, pretty even on the money line. The over-under sitting at 51.5. I've seen it as high as 52. First, we got to start with the Auburn Tigers opt-outs. They're getting hit pretty hard with opt-outs and guys going into the transfer portal. Obviously, starting quarterback Bo Nix has transferred to Eugene, Oregon, will not be available for the game. TJ Finley is expected to start, who we saw banged up in that Alabama game. Pretty bad, actually. Roger McCrary is also opted out for the NFL draft, along with Jacoby McClain, who's their leading tackler. Roger McCrary being that lockdown corner for them, who honestly I think could be a first-round pick when it's all said and done. Sean Shivers is also in the transfer portal. So a couple key contributors for the Auburn Tigers who will not be available for this bowl game. The Houston Cougars only have one, Marcus Jones, their cornerback, also very good special teamer. I think he'll be a day two pick. He's very talented. He's also opted out and is preparing for the NFL draft. Let's start off with Auburn Tigers on the offense side of the ball and how they match up with the Houston Cougars. The Auburn Tigers like to run the ball, obviously, behind Tank Bigsby, who's one of the better backs in the country, especially if Bo Nix is not available to go and they have to go with TJ Finley. The Houston Cougars, however, have been pretty good against the run. We see they've only allowed 106 rushing yards per game allowed, only 3.5 yards per carry. So they've been stingy against the run. However, that is not against SEC teams like the Auburn Tigers are, who have a very physical front and obviously a very good running back. As far as throwing the ball, I'm worried about TJ Finley. He looked really banged up against Alabama in that Iron Bowl game. At the end of the game, he barely could walk. I don't love him. He's obviously very big, has a good big arm, but has shown inconsistencies with the accuracy and also just does not see the game that quickly. He takes a lot of sacks. He holds the ball. Doesn't really go with the ball where it needs to go often. And so I'm a little bit concerned about how well Auburn's going to be able to move it through the air. That being said, I'm pretty optimistic that they'll be able to move the ball on the ground. I know Houston's stingy against the run. That being said, I don't think they've really played a team that's as physical as Auburn. And when they did, Jerome Ford and the Cincinnati Wildcats, they kind of fed them on the ground. Jerome Ford busted a couple big ones. He went 18 carries for 187 yards. He averaged 10.5 yards per carry. So a little bit concerned if you're the Houston Cougars going into that one. Let's check out the Houston Cougars on the offensive side of the ball. Clayton Tune is one of my, I wouldn't say favorite quarterbacks, but I really like this kid. Has 9 interceptions on the year. That's a little bit concerning, but not too bad considering how much they throw the ball. And he's also pretty athletic. I've seen him a couple times when I've watched some film on him and watched some of his games. He's moving the sticks with his legs, which is really big. Did it a few times last year when I was watching him play BYU. So he's pretty athletic and can find his guys. And one guy I would need to talk about is Noah Dell. I believe he's only 155 pounds, but this dude absolutely flies, hits massive big plays. When I was watching that SMU game, he got loose for 3 big touchdowns. I think he had something like 9 catches for 165 yards. I mean, he really went off. And he runs good routes too, has good hands. He's tough. I like this kid. Obviously, he needs to fill out that frame in terms of an NFL draft prospect, but he is shifty and he flies. On the Auburn defense side of the ball, they're obviously missing Roger McCrary and Jacoby McClain, but I think this team's going to be able to get after the passer. Clayton Tune and the Houston Cougars like to throw the ball, and I think it's going to be a challenge for them to block some of these guys up front. Derek Hall is a freak of nature. I'm going to pull up a picture of him really quick. I mean, I like this kid as an NFL draft prospect. He's a little bit of a tweener. I think he sits at like 251, excuse me. 6'3", but he is so big. Look at this dude. And he's he's a monster. And I think he has like 10 sacks on the season. He also has a running mate in Colby Wooden, who's also very good. I've watched Auburn a couple times, and they're a solid defense. They gave Texas A&M. Granted, Zal Calzada has not been very good, but they've been in a few defensive battles. And Auburn was really one of the teams outside of Alabama to really push the Georgia Bulldogs as well. Um, I think as far as going into picks, I think it really depends on is Auburn really want to play. We saw another SEC team who underachieved in the Florida Gators show up to that bowl game against UCF and really just didn't really seem like they wanted to be there. They ended up getting beat by 2 scores, I believe. But this Auburn defense is really tough. LSU's only scored 19 on them. Honestly, that game against Georgia got away from them in the second half, but they played them pretty solid. They beat Ole Miss in a very, very impressive showing against a high octane Ole Miss offense. In this Texas A&M Auburn game, barring some turnovers, that defense played phenomenal. And we saw maybe one of their better games of the season after that tough loss to South Carolina. They bounced back and should have beaten Alabama if a running back takes a knee. I believe it was Tank Bigsby. He ended up running out of bounds, gave Alabama some time on the clock to make it happen. And Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner, did make it happen. As far as plays per game, they're pretty average. So we're looking at that over under sitting at 51.5. The Auburn Tigers have a phenomenal defense. I think the Houston Cougars, barring maybe some splash plays by Noah Dell, will struggle to move the ball down the field. So I'm leaning towards the under in this game. They both don't play at a super fast pace, pretty average. I think they sit right next to each other when I was looking. The Cougars at 43 plays per game and the Auburn Tigers at 44 plays per game. I would guess that Auburn Tigers offense is going to dial it back as relation to the pace with a backup quarterback and TJ Finley in it. And I'm also not that optimistic that the Auburn Tigers are going to be able to just dominate and run the ball all over Houston, as I don't think TJ Finley is going to be able to throw the ball very well. So you're going to see a lot of heavy boxes trying to stop Tank Bigsby, and I'm forgetting the other kid's name from Auburn, but I like his game too. I think he's a true freshman. Yeah, Jaquez Hunter. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. As a relation to my picks, I'm leaning with Auburn inside of that field goal. At the end of the day, they recruit better. They have a more talented team. Yes, they're banged up. Yes, they have some opt outs. But even those two deep guys are going to be just as talented, if not more talented, than the Houston Cougars ones are. That being said, Houston Cougars have easily played better ball. 11-2, played very, very well against Cincinnati. But it's obvious that the strength of schedule is just not there. As for Auburn, they played on the road at Penn State, as well as a very tough SEC conference schedule. Auburn's coming in. You see those last five, they've only won one. Got beat bad by A&M. Couldn't really move the ball against that good defense. Beat by Mississippi State, in which a game I think they had a massive lead and just kind of gave it up. Lost a tough one to South Carolina. I lost some money on that game, and then obviously Alabama was able to pull out that four overtime game. So I think Auburn might try to bounce back here. I don't love a side on this because I can certainly see Houston being very jacked up to play after getting beat real bad against Hawaii in the bowl game last year. And they're going to be pumped to play a top blue blood SEC football team. I don't know if Auburn's going to be ready to do that. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. That being said, the over-under, I am leaning under here. TJ Finley does not inspire much confidence in me, and I think this Auburn defense is going to be able to get after it. That Houston offense, I don't love the under either, just because in those bowl games you kind of see the bags of tricks coming out. You see some big plays, maybe some double throws, some flea flickers. They like to go for it on fourth down more in the bowl games, kind of nothing to lose mentality. And so I don't love taking unders in bowl games either, but I do think this number is pretty high considering both teams have pretty solid defenses. And obviously the Auburn Tigers have a backup quarterback in. So with that being said, that's a review and prediction on this game. It's going to be a good game. I'm excited. It starts off a banger Tuesday of football, and so it's going to be a fun one. And I hope you guys enjoy the content. As usual, please subscribe, like the videos. That helps us out in a big way. And we appreciate you guys being here. Talk to y'all next time. Peace.